just started recording, and so we're going to dive in. This discussion most specifically is the history of the original temples of Dallas from the beginning. There are 5 predominant players. As you all know, there are several temples and synagogues, congregations here in Dallas, and especially since the 1950s, give or take, there have been several more options to choose from. So the major players we're going to be dealing with today are Shearith Israel, Tiferet Israel, Temple Emanu-El, Agudas Achim, and Anshe Sphard. So we'll dive in. I'll ask the first question, and anybody who would like to chime in is welcome to. If we get to the point where lots of people want to participate, we might do a message type thing or a raise your hand to be able to participate, but we'll take it and just play by ear. So, and I'd like to add, I have everybody on mute right now, so be sure to unmute yourself if you'd like to contribute. You're also welcome to just hang out and enjoy the discussion that's happening today. So, question number 1, what do you know about the founding and early history of one or all of these congregations? To refresh, the congregations we're focusing on today are Shearith Israel, Tiferet Israel, Temple Emanu-El, Agudas Achim, and Anshe Sphard.
Well, I can tell you a bit about Agudas Achim.
Great.
My grandfather, my father's father, was the founder and first president. My father was a little boy, and the story was that he went down to where they were building the shul, and he was very excited. He ran home to his mother, who was, he said, maybe 6 years old, and he said there's going to be a swimming pool at the new shul. Well, it was a mikveh that they, for immersion, that they were building in that synagogue. Fast forward, well, that was probably around in the early around 1922, I would guess, if he was 6. So we moved to Brownwood, Texas, and were there during the war, and we came back to Dallas in 1948, early 48, and my father, and the synagogue was floundering because many people were starting to move to North Dallas, but he still joined and became active there. And he ended up being the last president when they finally had to close. So it's sort of sad. I mean, the father and the son were the first and the last presidents. And there is a very large memorial plaque there in your office at the Jewish Historical Society on a wall. And that is the Agudas Achim memorial plaque dedicated to my grandparents. And it's been moved around. I've seen it over the years, and at Akiba, they didn't know what to do with it when the synagogue closed. They just kept moving it around. So now it's ensconced. It's huge plaque there at the office. So that's my story of the Agudas Achim.
Wonderful. That's funny. Those plaques are actually just to my right that Marilyn is mentioning. Who else would like to add about their knowledge of the origin of one or more of these temples and synagogues?
My father-in-law was also very active at Agudas Achim, and he and Rabbi Abramowitz were very, very good friends, very close friends. In fact, when Joe and I got engaged, the very first person my father-in-law took us to meet was Rabbi Abramowitz, and he decided when we could get married and when we couldn't. No matter that we were going to get married in Austin, and that rabbi was not good enough for Rabbi Abramowitz. So he had to tell us when we could get married. Joe always talks about going to services at Agudas Achim, and that the sermon was always in Yiddish.
Right, as a child.
When he was a child. And then they joined Shearith Israel.
Very interesting. Who else would like to add? Okay. I'll add in just some basic facts about Agudas Achim. We'll start there. Agudas Achim was founded in 1925 by Orthodox Jews in South Dallas, especially the ones who were unable or did not want to walk to Shearith Israel or Anshe Sphard. And as Susan and Joe mentioned, Rabbi Abramowitz led the congregation for 26 years. So good long career for him. In 1939, the Talmud Torah building was added, and ultimately the congregation was disbanded in 1957. And proceeds from the sale of the building and everything within went to the founding of Akiva Academy. So nice crossover with our last history discussion right there. And part of the fracture of Agudas Achim formed Ohad Shalom, which then became Golden Acres. So there's a lot of intermingling among Dallas Jewish history and the congregations and other organizations in the community, very tight-knit. Awesome. I'll share a little bit about Anshe Sphard as well. It was founded in 1906. The actual building was purchased and built in 1913. It later moved to South Dallas, and its original building in Goose Valley became a Catholic congregation, which became the first Mexican Baptist Church of Dallas, which was destroyed in the tornado in October.
Oh, how sad.
Yes. So that was their newer building. From what I've heard, they've been able to raise some funds and are going to begin reconstruction. The original building is no longer standing, but we are in the process of finishing and implementing a historical marker for that. And that is sort of around where the Perot Museum is now.
Is that the one they call the Romana Churchill?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it was the Romanian shul.
Yeah.
My grandfather, Joe Kirschbaum, was a member of that synagogue, and it's been very hard to find out things about it. I think Stanley Kaufman had all the records at one time, and since then, I don't know what happened to them. But my mother used to tell stories that it was upstairs and very dark, and she was always scared to death to try to go up there. So they all joined Temple Emanu-El, and my grandfather stayed there. And also, Joe's grandfather, out at Shearith Israel Cemetery, there is a obelisk that has the Austrian-Romanian Benevolence Society helped to start out there, and Jake Shackman was the treasurer. And that was what, 1906?
Wow. Wow, incredible long history. Very cool. Well, let's take a look at this next question. So this sort of goes into this next question. Are you familiar with the older congregations, Agudas Achim and Anshe Sphard? And what do you know about how they ceased and why they ceased to exist? So that's sort of been covered. And ultimately, Anshe Sphard merged with Shearith Israel in 1956. Does anybody know or like to add on to anything regarding that history?
The cemetery from them is at Shearith Israel, and it's at the very front of Shearith Israel. It's the first on Dawson Road. And it's, I guess, the first maybe 10 rows or something on the far east side of the cemetery. I mean, it may be more than that, but I know my grandparents were buried over there.
Right on. I will add that to our reference file. Cool. And I had talked about why Agudas Achim ceased to exist as well. So we'll move on to question 3. For anybody who has been involved in any of these congregations, Shearith Israel, Tiferet Israel, Temple Emanu-El, Agudas Achim, or Anshe Sphard, please share a favorite memory of your involvement.
Well, I was in the last confirmation class at the old Sheriff. Well, they had another building before that, but the most recent one they had in South Dallas. What street was that on? Anyway, I was in the last confirmation class, and with when Rabbi Silverman had come, and it was, that was the building everybody had to go. We had to, oh, yes, I think I mentioned this in the Jewish education. And Joe Shackman had his bar mitzvah. Right. It was one of the last bar mitzvahs there, I gather.
Right.
And during an ice storm, and my parents somehow got to South Dallas because we were living in University Park. to go. They said, "Oh, we must go," and they traversed. I don't. Many people did for his bar mitzvah in the ice storm. There wasn't. I don't know. Joe can maybe obviously know more about that.
It was a very nice crowd. It was the first big event that Zella Sobel catered. I was honored. In fact, I have the little bulletin from that week that I was honored when I was the last bar mitzvah in the old shul, but the Rabbi Silverman's father happened to be there that weekend. And Rabbi Silverman's father was very well known. He wrote the conservative prayer book, and he happened to be there and speak at my bar mitzvah.
Oh, cool.
I'll take off.
Does anybody else have a favorite memory of your involvement with Shearith Israel, Tiferet Israel, Temple Emanu-El, Agudas Achim, or Anshe Sphard?
We had a big 100th anniversary party at Shearith Israel several years ago, and we brought back all of the rabbis. Somewhere in my collection of books, which I need to give to the Historical Society, I have the one from 75th anniversary, from the 100th anniversary.
125.
And it was 125, I'm sorry. And from the 50th, I believe. So I'll have to look for those.
Yes, absolutely do.
She was saying about her confirmation class. We were able to get, we actually stole the idea from Temple Emanu-El. Our confirmation class was able, the 50th anniversary, people came all over from all the United States, and we had a reunion. And not only that, we had party and all sorts of events, and Rabbi Silverman came to our reunion, and it was a very memorable weekend. It was terrific, and we had, like I say, people came from all over the United States to come to it.
In fact, I think you may have the picture that we gave you all from that reunion.
I believe so. This sounds very familiar now that you're relaying that. I've heard that from other people as well, that they've made some very unexpected connections during that celebration.
Yeah.
Very, very fun. Cool. So
I don't know a whole lot about Emanu-El, except that my mother, as a teenager, taught Sunday school there with Rabbi Lefkowitz. And after she passed away, I found a book from Temple Emanu-El that listed Rabbi Lefkowitz and what he made. I think it was $700 a year. And so, I mean, it was really kind of interesting.
that is. That's fascinating.
Oh, I just remembered something.
Uh-huh.
So after Agudas Achim closed, we joined Shearith Israel, and they had this synagogue, in the old South Dallas area. And when the high holidays came at that point, they had grown so much they couldn't accommodate the membership. So they did the Forest Avenue movie theater.
Yeah, right.
And it wasn't too far from Temple Emanu-El, so some of us would sort of meet outside, major types, during that period, because they used the movie theater because there wasn't room in the synagogue for the services.
Exactly.
How fun. Okay. This is a tangent, but I'm curious. Was the Forest Avenue movie theater, is that what we know as the Forest Theater today? Or is it completely gone?
No, on what is now Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Alrighty. So now this goes for all of the congregations we've been talking about. So whichever one that you might know about, please share. We would like to know who are currently and who were any major players in the founding or shaping of these congregations. and why and how were these individuals significant? So I know you've mentioned a little bit about Rabbi Abramowitz and Lefkowitz. But I'd like y'all to elaborate on those two and anybody else that you know of who.
Oh, well, yeah. When they originally built the new Shearith Israel, the neighbors there were against
So
it.
funny, I was going to comment on that.
Were you? Okay. And the neighbors were against it. And of course, they said for the traffic, but we know what they were against. There was no question about it. And in the 1950s, what was going on there. And Manny Hoppenstein was the lead lawyer for Shearith Israel, and he recommended.
What's his name? I don't remember.
Melon, do you remember?
They got committees up to go.
Yeah, well, he had a lawyer that was not Jewish. Oh shoot, I forgot his name right now. Anyway, there's a memorial plaque in Shearith Israel, and he went all the way to the Texas Supreme Court, and Shearith Israel was allowed to build there. So it was.
I can't think of his name either. Marilyn, you can't think of it either, huh?
He was a non-Jew. His name's on a law firm here in Dallas.
Strasbourg?
Strasbourg.
Ta-da!
Strasbourg. Not a Jewish man. And my father went to some of the hearings in the court case, and my father said he was like the lawyers, you know, he wore a white shirt with suspenders and, you know, had the whole down home thing there, and there was no question that Shearith Israel would win, which they did.
That's fascinating. Gosh, you knew there was so much division when it came to forming some of these congregations. Very cool. Which other major players can any of you identify from these major congregations? Shearith Israel, Tiferet Israel, Agudas Achim, Temple Emanu-El, Anshe Sphard.
Well, and I remember that Rabbi Olin, when they had desegregation, came to Dallas. He was a very civic-minded rabbi at his time, probably, and he was very well known in the community. And he was a big leader in getting Dallas peacefully desegregated. We really never had, as I recall, and I lived through it, any protests, any kind of problems. Joe may remember something different, but I don't remember anything at all. It was all planned ahead, and they got community people together, all the leaders of everywhere, and Rabbi Olin was a leading force in it, and we just peacefully desegregated here.
It was done peacefully, and a lot of the leaders, and they had these people just joined together. One was Mr. Bloom Advertising, and he ran the public relations campaign for the peaceful desegregation of Dallas.
One of the more notable members of Shearith Israel on the other end of the spectrum was Jack Ruby. And I believe Rabbi Silverman went to visit him in jail.
I think he testified.
He may have testified at the trial. That was before my time.
Okay, cool. So how did the changing landscape of Jewish Dallas in the late 1940s and early 50s influence the evolution of these congregations and the evolution of how Dallasites attended services?
Well, Shearith Israel and Temple Emanu-El both built, and Tiferet, probably not too much after, built their new congregations about this. I know Temple and Shearith Israel about exactly the same time, and Tiferet may have been shortly after. So, there was really no life left in South Dallas for the few people that were still living there. They had to start coming north for everything, like we used to have to go south for everything. Because there was 2 total communities for, I can't say exactly, but I'd say a good 10, 15 years. There was 2 United Hebrew Schools of Dallas, which I didn't realize how long till I was talking to Hannah Lambert recently, who's a bit older than me. I didn't realize it started before my time. I just thought it sort of started when I started Hebrew school, but it had gone on before me in South Dallas and then North Dallas where I was. And they had 2 groups, and we would a couple of times a year get together with this one principal who would somehow do it. But we went to Hebrew school every day, Monday through Thursday. Kids today go once or twice a week and scream. So it was a different world. But I really don't know much about Tiferet Israel. I mean, I know there were several families, which I'm sure are documented in your. There were several very important families there that to this day, I guess their offspring of some of them are still involved.
I believe so. Oh, cool. Since we had Miss Rachel and more recently Miss Susan pop in, take a second to backtrack a little bit and see if they would like to add anything. So we are talking about Shearith Israel, Tiferet Israel, Temple Emanu-El, Agudas Achim, and Anshe Sphard, sort of the Big 5 and Big 5 original congregations here in Dallas, and sharing information that the community has on these organizations to sort of share the collective memory and gather from the collective memory of Jewish Dallas. So we've gone over what we know about the founding and early history of these congregations, and favorite memories of involvement in sort of major players. So if anybody would like to add anything that you know about any of these congregations, any of the major players, whether rabbis or community members who helped shape them, or any of your favorite memories from participating in these organizations, you're welcome to.
I know about that.
That's okay. You're welcome to hang out and just learn.
Okay.
Awesome. Rachel, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I just am wondering where the name Anshe Sphard came from.
So Anshe Sphard was originally known as, or also known as the Romana Shul. It was the first Romanian-Austrian congregation here in Dallas. It was Orthodox. It started, I'll go back through my notes real quick. It was founded in 1906. Their building was formed in 1913, an old house, what was known as Goose Valley or Little Jerusalem, sort of around where the Pearl Museum is today. And they eventually moved into South Dallas and then eventually merged with Shearith Israel, but Austro-Romanian.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Just, I have a little note that goes a little more recent history, not that recent, but going back in, I guess, the 70s, maybe, when they formed Beth Torah. Father had been president of Shearith Israel, and I remember we went over one Sunday and he was meeting with these people who he was helping them. Shearith Israel helped found Beth Torah because they felt there needed to be a conservative synagogue in the north, and in that case in Richardson. And so they lent them, they came to the house, they were taking prayer books home the day I came to visit. He was donating them the prayer books and doing everything they could to help them get off the ground, which, some of those people are still around that helped start that congregation.
And speaks again to the connection you were just talking about, Marilyn, of the 2 separate communities, but ultimately coming together. So that's the awesome piece of information. And I'll definitely add that to our reference file. Cool. So jumping back in, how did members of the various congregations interact? And what changes have you seen over the years?
Well, as youngsters, we didn't interact hardly at all, other than BBYO, the Neighborhood Youth Organization, which brought together people from Temple and Shearith Israel and all of them. Well, Anshe Sphard was probably already gone by then, and Agudas Achim leaving too by then. But it did bring together most of the youth in the community. There were some families who I met these people late. In those days, everyone knew everybody pretty much. But there were some families I met when we joined the Columbian Club in the mid-50s, when they decided to let conservative Jews join this very reform country club. But my father and his friends wanted to play golf, so they joined when they built a new place out in Carrollton. And they had a youth sort of teenage group. And I met some people I had never seen before who were not in BBYO because their parents thought it was too Zionistic, and they would not let them join. They were all from Temple. And Rabbi Lefkowitz was very anti-Zionist, this rabbi before Rabbi Olin. And Rabbi Olin was maybe moderately Zionist. It's changed a lot today.
A lot.
But anyway, so those people, I only met them because of the Columbian Club. I didn't know they existed because they went to mostly to St. Mark's and Hockaday, where not too many Jewish kids went then. We were either at Highland Park or Dallas schools. And anyway, that was sort of interesting because they thought they were too Zionist in BBYO.
I had, as I spoke before, BBYO was the great factor in bringing the Jewish youth together from all the different congregations that were there, and it was a big factor in town. And I knew people that went to Temple that until I got in BBYO, I didn't know. Now, some of the people used to go before, when Shearith Israel opened the new building, they had their own Hebrew school. Before that, it was United Hebrew Schools, and people would go there, and parents from Temple or Tiferet Israel or Shearith Israel would send kids, if they wanted them a Hebrew education, they would send them to United Hebrew Schools. But that I don't know. I would hope you have in your record how long United Hebrew Schools went on, and but the end of it was when Shearith Israel opened their own religious school.
I think
that was the end.
Congregations moved north. They opened their own religious schools, and although they already had confirmation Sunday school,
Right.
They didn't have Hebrew schools until they had buildings.
No, that's fine. We'll do it now. Yeah, you can do it now.
They, if you remember, Marilyn, did you go to higher elementary? Yes, right. That's where United Hebrew Schools were.
Marilyn, unmute yourself.
First, we went to Highland Park Junior High to the building. Then they moved to when they built higher school later. We went to higher, and that was when I was already in high school by then. Yeah.
Well, Marilyn's maybe a day or two older than me. So.
But not much more than that, right,
Not
Marilyn?
much more than that. Exactly.
Right. About 2 years, I guess, or so. Anyway, yeah, my brother was the second bar mitzvah at the new Shearith Israel after Joe was the last at the old Shearith Israel.
It was funny because when everybody started moving north, and of course but after your parents moved over on Yolanda, Maryland, and my in-laws moved over to Pebblebrook, and they had always walked to Shearith Israel. So my father-in-law decided it was Rosh Hashanah and he could not stand not to walk. So he would walk over to your house and walk with your father. I think they did that a couple of years and then they stopped. Decided it was too far.
Well, when we first moved north, my father would go to South Dallas and stay for the holiday with his parents, whether they were alive, or his friends, so he could go to the old Agudas Achim without walking,
Right.
without riding. But then that ended too.
Awesome. So I would just like to make a plug really quickly. Both had mentioned that BBYO was really integral to how Jewish youth and members of other congregations interacted with each other. The history of BBYO, and specifically BBYO's involvement in Dallas, is going to be our next history discussion, which will be June 10th. So just keep that in mind, and emails and stuff will be
What
going
time
out.
will that be? What time will
I
that
think
be?
that one's at 3 p.m.
Okay. Well, Deborah, of all people, should, and Deborah
Deborah's-
Polsky, our director, was the BYO director before that.
Yes, she will definitely be participating. I'll probably be moderator for that discussion as well, but I have asked her to participate just because she is so knowledgeable on the topic. So keep that in mind as we keep going. There's a lot of integration with these discussions. So to what do you attribute the tremendous growth of the congregations in Dallas? Now this is opening it up even broader beyond these 5 and the ones that were helped form, but we would really like to know your thoughts on what has attributed to growth.
Well, certainly immigration to Dallas, like me.
Absolutely. Rachel, where are you from? Remind me.
I have a very long story. I don't know if you're ready for it. Carol knows it. I was born and raised in Turkey, and but moved here from the Bay Area in San Francisco.
Very cool. Awesome. So definitely immigration is one aspect of it. What else? What other attributes of growth do you think?
The city has grown a lot since then.
I think also the economic opportunities that were here brought a lot of these people to Dallas. And
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Bye.
Sonda?
Awesome. Yeah, definitely economic growth and opportunity. What do you think has sort of informed the formation of different congregations as far as different kinds, Orthodox, conservative, Reform? Do you have any opinions or knowledge on why certain temples are forming or congregations?
Yes. Definitely the Orthodox community has grown here. And from what I understand is that the word got out that New York was too expensive and that Dallas was more affordable. And so they all started coming here and forming congregations.
Interesting.
Well,
I hadn't heard that aspect of it.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment on that point. I'm a member of Congregation Shearith Israel, and there's annually in New York, they have an event where people from congregations all over the country come and speak to students at Yeshiva University and other universities that have a lot of Orthodox members, and they speak to them to inform them about the communities, including Dallas, as sort of a recruiting tool to bring them to these other communities for that very reason, because of the affordability of living. And I know that that's been very successful in recruiting people to come from New York and the surrounding tri-states to Congregation Shearith Israel.
That's wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, Carol.
I didn't know that. That's great. Shearith Israel has really grown in the last several years.
Also, I think that, a lot of the Jewish population increased like everywhere in the South after World War II, because so many people from the East, North and East were sent to the army bases. They were mostly in the South, and they saw a whole different kind of life they never had imagined. They'd never been out of where they lived, and they never could imagine leaving there. And then they saw this different kind of life where you could buy land and have a big house, and you could have a job, and so many people moved here after the war because of their exposure to the military life. And, you know, the Jewish and the general communities both just grew immensely.
Thank you for sharing. So that wraps up the questions that we had prepared to fuel this discussion. So I'd like to open the floor to any questions that any of you might have, or any other tidbits that you'd like to share that weren't referenced as part of this discussion previously.
I'm just wondering, you know, they have these very old cemeteries here for several congregations.
Mm-hmm.
And has any research been done about these graves and the very old, there's some very old ones, about the people who they were, or any records that the congregations or cemetery committees would have, or?
A little bit is the short answer to that question. So a lot has been done. I know that back in the day, in the 80s, DJHS did a lot of research in Corsicana regarding that old congregation, as well as the cemeteries attached. So that might be some of the most in-depth information we have as far as regional Jewish cemeteries go. And we do have a smattering of information regarding the smaller, or I don't want to say small, but the other congregation cemeteries here in Dallas. And that's something that we hope to improve upon very soon. We've been talking a lot about potentially cemetery tours, or, you know, at least being able to share some more information. So I'm glad to know that's of interest, because we'll definitely be diving in. There's a mosquito in my office. So we'll definitely be diving in. I don't have a ton to share right now, but that definitely helps give us a direction as we keep working on that. Any other questions?
Yeah. Has there been anything, have y'all found anything more about the old Romanian shul, the Anshe Sphard?
Not a ton.
From the little that I know?
Yeah, the little that you know seems to be the little that everybody knows. We don't have a ton. We have one photo, and it wasn't even from when it was a Jewish congregation. It's from when it was the Catholic congregation. But you can see that it's an old Jewish congregation because the Stars of David are still visible in the windows. So that's a cool sort of intersecting of Dallas history. And we just have the dates, really, when it started and when they moved to South Dallas. But ultimately, we don't have a ton. It's sort of been a mystery.
Right.
I have a very, very small recollection. Some family here has some stained glass windows, or at least one from the old Agudas Achim.
Oh, really?
And I just can't remember who it was that years and years ago, they were touting how, they had this beautiful stained glass, like framed off in their home. I don't think it was in their window, but like more of art. And I'll have to rack my brain and see if I can talk to a few older people. But it was interesting that they had, when they moved, they took that with somebody.
That is very interesting. If you find out who it was, I would just be really interested.
I'm sure the family. I have a feeling. I'm going to check. I think it may have been something with Elaine Rutchick and her family.
Cool.
But I will try to check. What's in my mind?
Right on.
With Anshe Sphard, I know that the Kaufmans had all of the records at one time. I checked with Stanley's sister at one time, and she didn't want to have anything to do with looking for it or anything. So I don't know if Aaron would maybe know more about it or know where some of those records went. I even went into the vault at Shearith Israel looking for them one time.
To know.
And
I'll also take that seed and we'll see if we can find more information. That would be incredible. Awesome. Well,
You might
that, I'm sorry,
I'm
go
going
ahead.
to check with Ann Goodman Kahn.
Uh-huh.
Her, one of her grandparents went to that shul, and because she used to talk about it. So I'm wondering maybe she has some memorabilia from it. If anybody would, I don't know. I'll try to remember that.
Definitely check with her. I talk to
Yeah.
Anne occasionally.
Okay. Well, yeah, I know one of her. That's the only time I'd ever heard of that place. And she said, "Yeah, my grandmother, my bubby goes there."
Oh,
Didn't
fun.
know that.
Very, very small community. Even through decades, very small community. Awesome. Well, that wraps up original Dallas temples and synagogues from the beginning. If you have any questions or have anything that you would like to add, feel free to shoot me an email. And as I mentioned, we have one more history chat that's coming up on June 10th, the history of BBYO. And I have one more archive chat coming up as well, June 17th, hidden hazards in your home collection. So I'll be helping teach some things that you might not think about when you're displaying or storing your home collections that might reduce their longevity and staying power. So keep those in mind, and emails and such will be going out. And I'll send a couple good resources that I have, some articles about this topic as well, to everybody who registered. So thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon and contributing. It really means a lot. Thank you. Bye-bye.
thank you.
Very nice.
It was great.